Hello, Colleen. How are you?
Hello, Ruth. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very happy to have you here today for this series of interviews for the CAC. I would like you to be the protagonist of this interview. So let's start with a short presentation. Can you please present yourself? Who is Colleen Day?
I'm from a very small town on Vancouver Island, which is off the west coast of British Columbia. I ended up working in Halifax, which means I've been right across the country. I started off working in museums. I ended up being an archaeological conservator. And now I've come back to the west coast because the climate's better.
Okay. Can you please talk a little bit about what was your path to conservation?
I think most conservators have a very circuitous path to getting into conservation, and that's especially true for those of us that did it a while ago, because there wasn't really a really good route to do it by. So I started off studying biochemistry and Russian.
Okay.
At the University of Victoria. And I finished that degree, and my father was sick. So I went back home to my small town of Port Alberni to look after him, and I got a job. I was laid off, and so I was looking for a job, and one of the jobs that came up was working in the local museum. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, it was listed on the unemployment board as a technical slasher.
Okay.
But it turned out to be they wanted somebody to photograph the entire collection, do things like preparation work and all that sort of stuff. And I had done things like roof houses and carpentry work and that sort of thing. I had to put myself through university, so I did a lot of things, right? So I was hired for that. And because I was already a screen printer, because I did silk screening as a hobby. So okay. That was my introduction to museums. And a few people that I worked with said, what about this conservation thing? Because you have the science background and you have all these skills as a preparator, maybe you should think about conservation. So I went to visit Miriam Clavier at the Museum of Anthropology in Vancouver, and she offered me an internship right off the bat.
Wow, lucky girl.
So, I know. So it's the bravest thing I've ever done. I moved to Vancouver, which is like moving off my island into a big city. Every other move I've made since then, it was easier because of it. And I did an internship with her. I took a few courses. I ended up doing exhibit design with a designer there. And then out of that process, I got an internship at the BC Forest Museum back on the island, working on really big logging machinery. Mm-hmm. But at that point, I'd applied to Queen's. So after I finished the internship at the BC Forestry Museum, I went to Queen's.
Good. and then? Well,
the interesting thing about going to Queen's from here mm-hmm. is that I had no idea where Kingston was.
Okay.
So I had to look it up on a map. And I had a big truck, like an international traveler, like a big thing that I could sleep in the back of. So I kind of put all my belongings in the back of the truck and set off to Kingston. So that was an adventure.
I can see. So I'm always interested in knowing if you were an artsy kid. Were you?
Yes, absolutely. I still do all kinds of artsy things.
And were you a curious mind?
Absolutely. Well, that's how you get into science, right? You get into science by having a curious mind.
Yes, but I like to confirm, because every time that I've been interviewing a conservator, it's happened that people usually come from different kinds of backgrounds, but they have yes. this artsy and curiosity skill. And okay.
One of my friends who specializes in doing those Myers-Briggs evaluations. Do you know the Myers-Briggs evaluations?
No, I don't.
It's a personality type. She's a conservator, but as a sideline, she was also, and she says that she has theories about the Myers-Briggs type of conservators. Because there's one particular type that's very rare. It's called an INTP, which means that they're very, very creative people, but they're also able to do things with the creativity. They're not completely, creative and not able to go forward and get things done. And that's exactly the type I am.
Okay, that's good. And are you a fixer?
Absolutely. Every conservator is. I think we like problems. Like we like little problems to solve.
Yeah.
So whether a jigsaw puzzle that you have to sort out, that's almost too easy. So yes, you want to put it right.
Well, right. What is that unique conservation decision that you remember with a smile? Doesn't have to be the most important, Sometimes it's a very simple and very...
I think the one that makes me smile is kind of a breakthrough for me, was working on tin plate for the, I was working for Parks, and we were working on the Green Gables house.
Oh, okay, yes.
Edward Island. And it's interpreted as a 19th century farmhouse. So we were working on all these implements for the dairy. And there's all these tin plated iron things that had these little rust spots. And tin is very difficult to clean because you can't use acids on it. You can't use bases on it. And I had this kind of breakthrough where I decided I would make gelled acid to go on them. So for a while, I was known as the person with the Jello jigglers.
What year are we talking about?
Oh boy, 97.
Because gels are a thing now. Well,
I know gels are a thing now, but gels were not a thing then.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
And were you using something particular thing to do the gels, to make the gel?
Citric acid, because I was trying to get rust off of the thing, and gelatin, because
gelatin.
I was reading some of the scientific literature, because with the biochemistry background, my reading tends to be broader than just conservation literature.
Yeah.
And I found an article that said that the most effective one would be gelatin for that particular application. So I tried that.
Was it successful?
Very, very successful. And it was the one time when I think people all over the place started using that treatment and telling me about it. I mean, but being conservatives, they weren't doing it the way I was doing it. They did it with other chemicals and, like creativity over at that point. Yeah.
But that's nice.
But I smile because people called them the Jello jigglers.
Good.
It was a serious treatment, but it was fun too.
It's a good nickname.
Yes, there you go.
Do you like white coats, no coats?
Early in my career, I started off as kind of a manager. I used to wear the white coat because I was working at the New Brunswick Museum. And I at least kept a white coat on the back of the lab door, so that if I had to go visit, meet with the board or somebody, I had something I could put on. But by the time I got to being an archaeological conservator, I used to wear a Lee Valley Turner's coat, which is kind of beige and has knit cuff.
Something that protects you and keeps you warm.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
Okay, I've seen in your profile that you went to Italy and Greece.
Yes, the first time was as an internship, part of my Queen's internship. So I went with Krisha Spiridovich, and we went to Italy. But no, actually, the first time was Greece. So I got sent from Queen's with the Queen's Classics department to go to their excavation at CAC-ACCR in Greece, and that was mostly putting pots together, which I love. Like three-dimensional puzzles and soft edges and things. That was really...
Do you feel it's very different, the conservation there than here?
They were only keeping whole pots for the most part. That's completely different than archaeology here, where they wouldn't dream of backfilling with sherds the way they do in Greece.
Well, they have different things, but I was thinking more in the mindset.
Greece is interesting because there aren't that many, there weren't then, there are now, there weren't that many labs in Greece. Most archaeologists came in from outside and brought conservators with them.
Yeah.
So, you'd meet the conservators at the American School. There was also a little lab at the Plaka in Athens. And I visited there, and there were actually a couple of Greeks working there, but it was rare to find a Greek conservator. So that is very different because there isn't the same sense of community among conservators then.
Well, I suppose now it's very, very different.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's very, very different.
Yeah, it is. It is. Do you have or had a favorite tool?
Yes.
Okay.
Doesn't everybody? Actually, I retired with it because it was given to me. It wasn't equipment from my lab. It's a little gold a paring knife, like paring from bookbinding, that I can sharpen the edge of. Has a nice round handle. That's my favorite tool.
But it's one in particular?
Yes.
For how long have you had it?
How long have I had it? Since before I went to Halifax. So I think somebody gave it to me when I was at the New Brunswick Museum.
So that's more than 25 years.
Yes, it is.
That's nice. I always think that everybody has that particular tool, even if it's not in use anymore, but it's like an amulet or something that you like to have.
A lucky charm, yeah.
Yeah, something that you like to have, like the teddy bear.
Yeah.
Okay. A particular tough decision?
Tough decisions. You mean related to conservation?
Anything you are free to. Well, of course, I'm not talking about life. I'm talking more about professional.
Professional. I think it was when I finished Queen's, I was offered 4 jobs.
Oh, wow. Lucky you. Okay.
Very different times, right? That was what, 87?
87?
Yeah. So I think it was difficult for me because at that point, then I had student loans. So I had to go for the permanent job. I was offered several contracts, but only one permanent job. And it was in New Brunswick at the New Brunswick Museum. And I think that was a very difficult decision for me because there were other jobs that were probably more where I thought I wanted to go, with making mounts and things like that, working with exhibits as an exhibit conservator. Because of my background as a preparator, I thought that's where I was going to be going, but it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, because you have specialized more in archaeological and objects, right?
Yes.
Anything in particular that you really, 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 really like it?
I really love ceramics and waterlogged wood. I really love waterlogged wood.
Why?
Because they're never straightforward.
Okay.
The nice thing about archaeology is the stuff is wrecked, right? So the things you do are very active. You don't have to have some of the discussions, is it worth doing anything at all, that you have with other artifacts, because some archaeologists has dug it up and it's unstable, so you have to do something. And waterlogged wood is often very complex. It takes very, very long to treat, so you have to come up with all kinds of ingenious things for how to make a pond to put it in, or a tank, that kind of thing. It's just constant problem solving, and it's often working as part of a team.
So do you like challenge?
I like challenge, yes. But challenge where there's a team to help. That's the...
Yeah, like challenge without resources and team.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I enjoyed working for Parks Canada, is because I could always talk somebody into paying for what I needed.
Yeah, that's nice.
I'm very good at poaching in other people's budgets.
That means you're persuasive.
I am very persuasive. If there's an object at risk, yes, I'm persuasive. And I worked with a great bunch of archaeologists.
Those 4 job offers that you received, anything that you thought, oh, I should go to the other path? Were they related?
There was one in New York City working for the Museum of the American Indian, making mounts. That was very, very tempting, but because I want to do the job. I don't know if I wanted to live in New York City, but
yeah. I see
but
your point. Well, back
just,
in the day it would be different, but
yeah, no, it was a year, right? So
okay. In your opinion,
yes.
what is that essential skill you think a good conservator should have?
Humility.
No, there. Okay, I was going to say there is no right or wrong answers here. Humility?
Yeah, I think with treatment there are many right answers and many wrong answers, and I think you have to have humility. That's because one does make mistakes, and one does not take into account good advice.
Does it happen to you?
Oh yes. Would you like to hear about some spectacular failures?
Of course, I love failures because I think they give room for improvement.
Yes. Okay. So because I work for Parks Canada, we often made things look nice for exhibits. And we had a whole bunch of little, there were cod liver oil bottles that were going on display. And the curator wanted to have them look like they had cod liver oil in them, but not all the way to the top, right? And I'd had great success at another site, actually at the Green Gables site, putting in little colored gels so that they looked like there was liquid in there. So you got away from having to have liquid in the bottle, right?
I see gels again.
Yeah. Anyway, or colored film, if you like that better. So I put it in this little bottle, and I had this trick of putting a balloon in it, and then you blow up the balloon and it pressed the colored film out to the sides of the bottle.
Okay.
And I didn't know there was a hole in the balloon.
Oh.
it became a jet because the air that I was pumping in went right out the hole of the balloon. The little cod liver oil went right across the room and smashed into smithereens on the floor.
Well, nobody was hurt, right?
Nobody was hurt. But the object was not repairable. And it wasn't an artifact.
So what was your reaction?
Well, I really didn't want to have to tell the curator that I'd smashed something, but
yeah, I'm sure you never used a balloon without being sure it was perfect.
No, I did not use a balloon for that purpose again. I came up with something that was harder, but that was just so elegant, right? I think sometimes you can get caught up in the elegance of things.
Okay.
That's why I say humility is the most important.
Yeah, recognizing that we don't know everything. And that
we don't know everything.
And we need help.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
If you could travel in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, that's a very interesting one. I don't think I would change anything because everything that's gone before has brought me here. I've had a really good run. I've had many good relationships with many good people through the years. I've had wonderful jobs. I'm back where I belong on the West Coast, on Vancouver Island. And if I started changing things,
not changing, maybe something that you would tell yourself, like relax, or
yeah, maybe that relax, it'll all work out. But if I knew that, would I make all the same choices? I don't know.
Well, for sure, because we cannot do it, or we don't know if we can do it, but that's a hypothesis, right? So if you could.
No, I don't. I think I would be too scared to change anything because it worked out all right.
So you wouldn't go.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Next one.
Okay.
Any professional regret?
Professional regrets? No. No, absolutely not.
I see you are positive. I like that.
I have reason, right? I've had good jobs.
Yeah. Because you were working at the Atlantic Service Center of Parks, Canada
Yes,
for 25 years.
I was.
That's a long time.
It is a long time. I never thought I'd stay that long in one job, but it wasn't the same job, right? It morphed. It's nice in that it was a job that I could recreate myself every 5 years in.
Would you say that you had more hands-on at the beginning than at the end?
My job was always a combination of management and supervision and hands-on, which is probably what made it sustainable. But if I'd gone for a promotion, I would have had less hands-on work, and I think I need a certain amount of hands-on work. But I probably don't want to scrape at corrosion 40 hours a week, you know, under a microscope. I'm fine with that for 8 hours, but so the kind of combination of projects and hands-on work. I think if you'd asked me, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, I would have said that I would tell my earlier self not to worry so much about treatments. And because when you're doing things like working on budgets or working on storage, or you're treating whole collections, and too often as conservators, we concentrate on the thing on the bench in front of us.
Yeah.
But I think soon after that, I came to realize that you need that to keep yourself in the right headspace. You need to be treating an object on the bench in front of you to keep the right connection with the whole collection that you're also trying to treat. So you need a balance between kind of those overall management projects and individual treatments.
In 25 years, you had the opportunity to have the same object several times, have you?
Yes. Yes. I think that's one of the reasons that you have to have those conversations. Training site staff was a big thing for us, and it's because sometimes we treated objects by training the staff. It's like one pair of, I think they're curling tongs, came back 3 years in a row. And it took a lot of conversations to find out that the maintenance people weren't putting the storm windows up in time, so that they were in a place where they got wet if the storm window wasn't put on in time. And it was Cape Spear, so it was like salt water. So they were getting doused in salt water. So, you know, the conversations that you have with to make sure that those, and we found out that the cleaners at Lewisburg didn't have access to the plugs for their vacuum cleaners, and that's why they were sweeping and not vacuuming. Just things like that can make a huge difference, and that's part of what I got to do at Parks, was working with the sites, trying to make their, you know, directly at the sites with the sites.
Any particular object that you would like to be treated?
That I would like to be treated?
Yeah.
There was one in my lab when I left. Okay, so shortly before the end of my career, so I retired in 2017. Sometime before that, Parks decided they were moving all labs to Ottawa for conservation. And so we were in a building that I was the project manager for, that was like my dream lab, that we moved in 2012, I think it was. So we hadn't really gotten we weren't fully operational with it yet. And they decided they were moving everybody to Ottawa. So there was kind of a slow attrition, and I was the last conservator in the building when the time came. And it was like a big lab that had room for 12 conservators.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. It's still there. So there was this, it was a rag wheel. So it was part of a sawmill at Fundy National Park. Fundy National Park was restoring the natural integrity of the salmon stream. So they blew up a dam so that the stream would run. And, cultural resources, they found an old sawmill.
Okay.
So this is when they loaded it on the truck, and then they called us to tell it was coming. So we were faced with this thing.
What year are we talking?
Oh, heck.
More or less.
More or less. Early 2000s, I think.
Okay. We suppose that now they don't go and explode things.
Well, In national parks, sometimes they're more concerned about natural integrity than they are about looking at the old maps to see what might have been there.
Hmm.
They were trying to restore the salmon stream. How can you
Yeah,
fault that?
that's why
But
teamwork.
they should have looked at the old
Teamwork.
map and seen that there was an old sawmill there. There were two pieces that we got from that, but the one that was left was this. It was a rag wheel. So if you think a water wheel,
Mm-hmm.
and it was about 12 feet long.
Mm.
Uh,
Big.
yeah, 4 feet high. And we'd had it in the lab. I say we, mostly two of us. We had it in the lab, and we stabilized the wood so it was dry, but we hadn't cleaned the surface and put it all back together so it looked like, because it needed to have an armature built to support some of the bits that would have to go back on, and it had never happened. And I would love to see that back on display at the site.
Oh, so where is it now?
I don't know.
Okay. We'll leave it there. Can you give a piece of advice for the younger generations?
Everybody's path is different. So patience. You only need one job.
One at a time.
One at a time.
Okay.
Yes.
3 essential skills they should have or they should cultivate.
Cultivate 3 essential skills. Well, some of them are what you've already mentioned, like the curiosity. I can't imagine getting into conservation without good hand skills, because that would be a problem. And it's really important that you work in some kind of an institutional environment so that you kind of get at a very base level the approach to artifacts that is central to conservation. I think if you start off as a private conservator and you never go through working in a lab with other conservators or working in a institution with curators and with archaeologists and things like that, that it's very hard to really come to a profound understanding of cultural integrity and the code of ethics and how you might go about applying that.
Okay. What keeps you busy these days?
Well, we moved into a new house and I have to put a new garden in, so.
Okay, that's conservation too.
So I'm putting in a garden. I haven't taken on any work. I haven't pursued any work, although I might, because I still have family responsibilities. But I am doing a little consulting work.
So you have not abandoned conservation?
No, there are still people who trust me enough to call and ask my opinion on things. So conservators who I respect still respect me. So I guess I'm doing okay.
Of course, I'm sure. Because you have to think that I interview people who have been nominated. So that means somebody asked me to interview you.
Yeah, there you go.
Right?
I find that people find it useful to talk through things like treatments with me, because figuring out your path through a treatment is sometimes what you need somebody with experience to help with. Not to tell you what to do, but to point out pitfalls.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that comes with experience.
Something that you think is myth in conservation.
A myth?
Yeah. Like everybody thinks conservators do something or conservators' life is, but that's not true.
I think the comment that you get most from people is that you must have to have a lot of patience. And the thing is, if you're in love with the profession, it doesn't feel like patience.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really interested in a coin and you're really interested in the corrosion that's coming off of it, then it doesn't feel like patience if you're scratching at the corrosion under a microscope.
Good. Okay, go ahead. I think I cut you.
You think you've described it? I think the comment that you get most from people is that you must have to have a lot of patience. And the thing is, if you're really interested in a coin and you're really interested in the corrosion that's coming off of it, then it doesn't feel like patience if you're scratching at the corrosion under a microscope. You think?
Okay,
Yeah, so I think that is it. If you don't absolutely love what you're doing, don't do it.
Well, yes, that's nice.
Yeah.
but I maybe sometimes you have to do things that you don't like it because you don't have other
It's always
option.
part of the job, right? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Was it very painful?
Retiring?
Yes.
Um, no, because the lab was kind of being shut down.
Yeah. But not being there, like.
Like it had gone from being like a fully functional lab and working as part of a team, and I really like being a supervisor. You know, I like making everything. It's a bigger problem. You know, the artifacts are one problem, but the bigger problem is how you get everybody working and everybody happy with what they're working on. And I really missed that. And there weren't as, you know, archaeologists were retiring, and there weren't as many people to work with. And I like those interdisciplinary aspects of conservation.
Do you miss it?
Yes, very much, especially the people. But yeah, and those interactions with archaeologists and, you know, collections managers, and there's, yeah, I miss it a lot.
I suppose so.
Yeah, but I'm missing something that isn't there anymore, right?
Well,
So
but of course,
yeah,
we have that romantic image of.
yes, yeah.
Are you volunteering now?
In conservation, no, not apart from phone calls.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, I'm way too busy.
Okay. And are you interested in any research now that you have more time?
Time.
Yeah, I know. I know that's a fallacy.
It is well. I still have a spouse who's not well and a daughter at home, so I really don't have time.
Well, you take care. As a conservator, you take care. Now
Yeah,
you are
that's it.
caring about another.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. But I have we bought a house that was what we could afford, but didn't have a studio for me, and we converted the garage into a wonderful space. So
So you still have space.
I'm doing, what did you call them? Artsy things? Artsy things.
Artsy, yes. Artsy, yes.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's all
Okay.
from my side. Do you want to ask me something?
No, I think that's good. This was painless.
Oh, I'm happy to hear.
I should recommend this to other people.
Oh, I'm glad. Okay,